Hello, this is Kafunda Banks of Conscious Teachers coming to you with Phyllis Douglas from California, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Southern
Okay.
California. Yeah.
Right. And I just want to spend a moment telling you who Phyllis is. And I have a long page of everything that she does. So let me, I definitely have a girl fan crush on Phyllis because I think she's who I want to be when I grow up. But Phyllis is a massage therapist specializing in advanced manual therapy with a focus on the John F. Barnes myofascial release approach. She's a functional movement and training and movement re-education therapist, a sound therapist, energy healthcare practitioner, a certified Pilates trainer, a yoga teacher, a shamanic practitioner specializing in the Toltec tradition, a musician and a vocalist, ordained minister, a wife, mother, a road biker, and a nature enthusiast. So, wow! Talk about living life fully. That's such a beautiful description of all the modalities that you have embraced and that you walk. So it's incredible. So I wanted to ask you, what has led you down this path, these alternative paths, these different modalities that you have taken up?
Well, that could be a long answer. Let's see. Well, one of the things, as you had mentioned too in the beginning, was that as a child, I was very intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised in a religious family. And there wasn't any talk of esoteric studies or mysticism or, magic or any of that type of thing, right? And so there were many, many things that happened to me throughout my childhood of a spiritual nature, which I never told anyone in later years. I mean, I could see spirits, and spirits would come talk to me and so forth. And I always knew that I was safe.
Right.
As a child, I always knew that no matter what happened, there was something, but I didn't really have a way to verbalize what that something was.
Right.
I was also one of those kids that they didn't like in Sunday school because I didn't really, my intuitive understanding of God, not as like a wrathful God or anything. It just never, my thoughts and biblical knowledge never really coalesced quite right. And so I would always ask all of these questions, and they would just, it was kind of like, that's just the way it is. Stop asking questions.
Nobody has real answers for those.
Nobody really had any answers.
Right.
And so I had a number of things. I mean, I had kind of leaving my body when I was a child, and I would float around the house, and they were just very, and I just, I think part of me thought that everybody was like this. But I never questioned it, nor did I ever really come forward and say anything until when I was, I believe about 15. I think I was 15 at the time, and my, I was sleeping. I'd just gone to bed. It was about 10:30 at night. And I think it was exactly 10:30 because when I woke up and looked at the clock, and I was having what I thought was a dream.
Yeah.
And then I realized I had this very heavy scent of lavender perfume, which is my grandmother's favorite scent. And then my grandmother came in. And I didn't realize it wasn't a dream until after it happened. But she said that she was making her transition. And in so doing, she came to the understanding that she was a seer. But also she noted that I was a seer. And she took it upon herself to come to me prior and tell me. She said, I have to tell you this. It's really important. It wasn't until, later years that I realized it was important by a lineage standpoint.
Right.
But the lineage on my mother's side and my father's side is, strewn with healer types and shamans and voodoo priestesses and all the other things. And so she came forward to tell me that. And then she told me that there was a ring, a diamond ring, that I would receive when I was 16, and told me she loved me and sang and she loved. So it was interesting because I was like, la-di-da, that's it, whatever.
Yeah,
And I
right.
remember getting up, I went to school, and when I came home, my father was home.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's wrong? And he said, well, I'm so sorry to tell you, your grandmother passed away. And my answer was, oh, I know, she came and talked to me. And it was like,
And what did he say?
well,
Your father's reaction.
They didn't say a whole lot. They didn't actually really speak to me for about 2 days. And so it was very interesting. And my mother was, growing up, my mother had challenges kind of with depression and things. Never really realized it till later years. But one of the things was I was very empathetic. And so I carried her energy a lot so that she would feel better.
Right.
And that our lives would be better.
Right.
And so in later years, really, in my 40s, it was kind of like I had a lot of things that I had to release, that I had, different things I'd become attached to, or different things that I had taken ownership of, especially other people's challenges that I realized I had been carrying. So basically, for the most part, I was really silent, and I actually shut off I shut off the intuition and all of that until kind of my mid-20s.
Can I just say one thing? You are saying some really powerful things, and I think that a lot of people listening to what you're saying will be able to relate to your story, because I certainly can. And that whole piece about having that intuitive self when you're very young and being aware of it, and the holding on of that internal self, whereas a lot of us are sort of conditioned out of that internal intuitive relationship that we have with the divine, and we allow ourselves to sort of be shaped and molded by the ideology of our families or our religions or our society. But there are some who sort of hold on to that, and as you said, kind of meet with opposition from other people who have let go of that and have sort of conformed, and sort of looking at you now like, I don't have any answers for you, conform already, Yeah, and then also the holding on of energy of others, especially your family of origin, and how people in sort of the family dynamic can do that, hold on to energy that is not theirs, just to sort of even out or be the balance for the family. And how in later years you sort of realize that all of these things that you may have habitually done or felt or believed were not your thoughts or beliefs or energy to begin with, and the importance of needing to release that so that you can be your true authentic self. So sorry to interrupt, but
no problem. Thank you.
That is very deep.
Well, let's see. So when I was when I left home and I was in my 20s, then my grandmother started to come in. I had some turbulent emotional times, and whenever that happened, I would just smell this heavy lavender smell, and this warm kind of nurturing energy would come in, and the realization came, that's my grandmother, right? And I had had a reading from someone, and my grandmother came right in, and I was like, why is she here? And she says, because she had taken on the job, so to speak, of being a protector for a time. She said, that's my job. So what happened then was that there was a part of me that was just unfulfilled. And I couldn't figure out what that was. So I began seeking, but I began seeking in what would have been considered more the norm of finding church, going back to church. I thought, I go back to church. So I bounced from church to church to church, and just didn't find it, wasn't finding it. I would become involved, and I'm like, part of me was, it was being focused on a doctrine or focused outside of myself to this intermediary or third party that was supposed to lead me to God. I couldn't do it, right? I was told I couldn't do that. I will help you do that. if you do this, you will attain a relationship with God. Well, it never happened. It was always like, there's something missing here.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember what really came forward, the chicken or the egg type of thing in the story, but it was that I was at a doctor's office and there was a flyer there that was for a Reiki class. And I just heard, sign up for this Reiki class. It was something to that effect. It was very, very, I mean, it was some part of me was like, take the flyer, call. So when I left, I immediately called and said, well, I'm to sign up for this Reiki class.
Wow.
And I mean, things happened in between, but I had some very, I will go back on one little brief thing. A lot of things happened to me of a just highly spiritual nature, not just of the light, but of the dark too.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand until later that those were training grounds, right?
Right.
One of the things I had to experience, you've seen the movie like Paranormal Activity.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I was a child and still around that age of preteen going in, because our energies change.
Right.
I had an experience like that where I woke up like fighting for my life because I was being pulled off the end of the bed. And it was in that kind of half sleep. And I was fighting and I dove and I pulled the lamp cord on and the light came on and it stopped. And I was like, and what I realized when I looked around was the blankets were off the bed, the mattress was half off, the box spring was half off. I'd been fighting. Yeah. And when I pulled my foot up, there were fingerprints on my foot. So that was, you know, oh dear God. And from then I started sleeping under the blankets with lights on, flashlights. You know, it was just, but, you know.
How old were you at that time, can I ask?
I was somewhere between 13 and 15. Yeah. And it's all when our hormones start arising, there's also an opening, you know. There's also kind of a Kundalini opening chakra type of response that takes place with that. And you can either ignore it and let it recede, or you can allow it to open. And so things like that happen. So I went to the Reiki class and kind of skip forward. And I did Reiki 1, and she said, well, you know, before you do Reiki 2, you're going to go home, you're going to practice 1, 2, 3. So I went home, and I decided at that time I was going to start a bit of a practice doing Reiki. But at that time I was working on people. And so I went back to Reiki 2. And she said, okay. So she goes, now you've had time to work with Reiki 1. What was happening? You know, what all happened? And I was like, well, I was doing this, and I was doing this. And it was just like, and she's looking at me cross-eyed going, you're not supposed to be doing that. She goes, and that has nothing to do with Reiki 1. It was really funny, but it was that the key was, you're not supposed to be doing that. I kind of held on to that a little bit, and I was kind of like, well, why? You know, I had this intuitive guidance. And so did Reiki 2 and went away. And again, I started, you know, I would do Reiki, but then I realized that something else was coming in.
Something else coming through.
That I was doing. Until one day, you know, I'd seen a client, she left, and I went, oh my God, I forgot to do the symbols. I didn't do any Reiki symbols. Did it work? And so what I really had to acknowledge about myself was that we all, shamanically speaking, we all come into this lifetime with our personal medicine, our personal gifts. And that anything that we are doing is a training ground to bring forward what we already know. Bring forward our inner knowing, our inner gifts, and to begin to acknowledge them. But the thing that a lot of people don't do is they get trapped in what I'm just going to call the Reiki box. They get trapped in someone else's teachings. Like, you have to do it this way. And I'm not picking on Reiki, but that's just my symbol. It's kind of like, this is Reiki, you do the positions, here are the symbols, have at it, but don't do anything else. So one of the things that was my beginning opening about working with energies. So after that, I was guided to take many, many different classes, I mean, I took off like a list of experiences and certifications and things from my website.
So some of this that you've embarked upon has been the result of your natural curiosity, right? That you were drawn to certain modalities because they spoke to you in some way. And then you were curious about them and you decided to investigate for yourself.
Yeah, it was less about a curiosity and more about an inner drive that I had no idea where it was coming from.
Right.
So,
and trying to find what is that
right, what is that
thing? Right. Mm-hmm.
So, I became more and more intuitive. I began really communicating with spirit entities. I started channeling, and it was it was a whole growth experience. And then I started releasing. And I found it was very strange, but I was never frightened. I would go to like an energy healing circle or something, and my body would like undulate and all of these energies, and it was very strange. But a part of me knew it was okay. And a part of me over here said, Phyllis, you are really weird. Right? We're going to think you're strange. And through that period of time, I lost friends, right? Yeah. Because people would come to me and say what you're doing is, bad and whatever, and you're a witch and you're all of this. Mm-hmm. But part of me had to fight that because I knew that wasn't true, right? But the human part of me was like very, very sad, and I wanted to quit, and I wanted to self-sabotage, and I wanted to do all of these things that would just disallow me from being successful along this path. And of, stepping into my power.
Yeah, right. Was can I ask you, part of the sadness that you had was, because I think this is interesting too, because you said that as you grew up, you felt like everybody was like this. As you were opening up intuitively, your thought was everyone was like this. So as you grow up and you make relationships, there's a part of you, or was there a part of you that felt like, well, deep down inside, everybody feels similar to the way that I feel. Like there's this part of you that's sort of growing and wanting to express yourself. And then when you see that how people are so kind of wrapped up in societal norms or traditions that they can't allow that expression, did that result in a sadness for you? Because there's almost a sense of mourning for them, like, oh, you mean you really don't have that connection? You really don't feel that sense of alignment that is so vital and so necessary for me? So did you have that sense of like, not only just the sadness for them in losing the relationship, but also the sadness for them in, wow, you really don't have that profound or feel that profound connection that I know is life.
Yeah, it was
as a healer.
I had to realize that you cannot change a person, and you cannot change, what I realized was you cannot change another person's life experience at all. Right. It's their personal life experience. Right. And so at the time it was more about somewhat feeling bad that they hadn't attained an understanding that I had, that they were kind of lost in that third dimensional thing. It's kind of like you don't realize the true and beautiful immensity of who you are.
Exactly. It's pure beauty.
You can't do anything about it, right? You can't do anything. Yeah. But part of it was a loss that, originally was like, oh, is there really something wrong with me? Mm-hmm. Wanting to be here when everyone else is over here type thing. And, things that people would say to me, it's kind of like, am I evil? I started to have kind of like, there was this fight, but that was okay. One of the things was, when I talked about earlier, how I always felt connected to something larger than myself. No matter what thoughts I had, I still inexplicably kept moving forward. Right. And so there was like this driving force. So, when I really began journaling, I have tons of journals and correspondences with spirit and so forth. And just kind of wrapping this up a little bit. So all of that happened. And originally all of my teachings came from the non-physical spiritual realm, which for the most part they do now. Right. And I, several years ago, I think I was told that I was going to go through a 5-year plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
That from year 1 to year 5, everything would clear up. I would fully step into my power. All my gifts would come in. And it happened when I turned 40. And it seems like a lot of women, especially in the late 30s, but primarily early 40s, are beginning to step into becoming
Right.
who they really are.
Right.
Because there's a job to do. And it was kind of like through this 5-year period, which was quite tumultuous, of like shedding the old stuff. I didn't realize, and not only my stuff, but my entire lineage, especially through the female line.
Right.
And so at the end of 5 years, I was told the year after that would be when everything would begin to come in. And that's really what happened. So what I'd always been told as this was happening, the key thing was I had to trust.
Mm-hmm.
I had to trust in what was happening to me, but I also had to trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to have faith in God no matter what was happening. I had to hold that faith. And so fairly recently, the last 2 years, one of the culmination of all that, but really last 4, was that I asked the question, why am I here? And I was told to change people's minds. That was it, was to change people's minds.
A big job.
And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
There's more. And it's like, we are not human beings in this sense. I mean, we are beautiful, holy, and sacred spiritual beings having a human existence.
Right.
And why I'm here and the things that I teach, what it's aligned with is that our spiritual essence, bringing in light. It's not that when it used to be that we had to transition in order to ascend, or but that's
you
not
had
true.
to die, the layman term.
Yeah. God is,
you had to kick the bucket.
God is allowing us to enlighten in human form. So, and my guides are always saying, I enlighten. We are drawing in light. And the more light, when we connect with God, and the more light that we are drawing into our central channel, into our beingness, then we are pushing out all that is not in alignment with that, and we are becoming who we're meant to be. So through our spiritual studies and our meditation and our rituals and whatever practices, it doesn't matter if you're a religion, it doesn't matter what your practices are. It really doesn't. It all leads to one true God. It doesn't matter how you get there. Right? We all have our ways to get there. And so what we're working towards is direct communication with God. And that's really what I teach. It's our ability to directly communicate with God. And so it's really it's about going inward and finding who we are. It's about discarding those things that are not aligned with us. And really about what Bashar says, it's like follow your excitement. And that's what it's about, because our higher self, our intuitive self, is speaking to us through our intuition. That's our monitoring system. That's our radar. It guides us. It tells us if we're going in the right direction or we're not going in the right direction. So when we follow our excitement, we're on the right path. When we go towards those things that make us feel good, right, and excited, it's like, wow, this is awesome. We're on our right path. When we feel crappy, basically, excuse the term, or we just feel affronted and we don't feel good, we're not in the right place. We're not in the right space. We're not in the right alignment.
Well, right. And that's why I think people who do what you do, who do the, who sort of do the mind-body alignment approach, specifically focusing on the body, because like we had said earlier, from being a child very early, we were trained out of using our feelings. And as you said, our feelings are really our guideway, our guidance system for aligning and being on the right path. And if you are disengaged from your feelings, or you are not aware of what your true feelings are, then you find yourself sort of floundering, spiritually, secularly, in all different areas of your life. So you really do need to own that part of yourself and bring it into alignment. And the challenging part for a lot of people, because they've been disengaged for so long, is bringing those shadow feelings with them and trying to sort of vet out and meet those shadows and, like you said, release them so that they can get to that pure point of joy and excitement and understand what their connection is really about. And that's what I think when people are sort of targeting others who are on this path as bad or evil, it's that fear of that feeling. Like, we've been trained that, honestly, we've been trained that we're not supposed to feel good. You're supposed to feel...
Life is work, right?
Right, life is work. Life is obligation and responsibility, and it is some of that, but basically it is about feeling good in those things.
And I think you made a point of, like, you said the word point, and really what this is all about is returning to what I call our point of origin. As a creative, godly, holy being. And so to kind of culminate all of that, what it is that we want to connect with our spiritual essence and anchor in the truth of who we are, our spiritual beingness, and allow that to take the forefront in our lives, so that we are always approaching life, and our actions and our thoughts come from that spiritual place of being. It's not that you are standing in the middle of Wall Street pounding your chest going, I am spiritual, right? But it's approaching every aspect of your life from a spiritual container essence. And what that gives you is a higher perception. It gives you kind of that bird's eye view of your life, so that you can really be aware of things going on around you and your surroundings, so that you have a better idea of how to get to point A, from point A to point B, and so forth. And so that's really what my work is about, is allowing people to clear the container, to bring in their true essence, and to move forward with their lives, and to step into their power. And so when you're talking about my list of activities that I do, one of the things, or my offering services, one of the things that has been really has been an interesting journey the last, I guess, maybe 2 years, was that I was told, okay, you've got to refine your work. You've got to refine your work. It's not about all these things that you do. It's about what you do, who you are, your true gifts. And so when you think about all of the trainings and all of that as your bag of tools, right? You pull from those things the tools and the resource and whatever it is that are aligned with you, that make you feel good, that allow you to expand. And you carry that tool bag. And so it's really about becoming who you are. So you don't want to get trapped in any of your studies or in within anything people say. You want to take those little tidbits that resonate with you. And so what I've been doing the last 2 years is really what I call myself is an integrative mind-body release therapist.
Nice.
And so I've started to use all of those tools to do just that. Okay.
Nice.
And so what you're trying to do is to refine who you are in your process of becoming. And there's 2 things I wanted to say, and then we'll have to do another interview so we can have Phyllis part 2. I've got so much more that I want to share with you. 4 years ago, I lost both of my parents. They both ended up with cancer. Yeah, it ended up being kind of, it's going to sound funny, it'd be a very beautiful thing, a very beautiful process. And, when you lose a parent, that lineage, that energy transfers to you. You receive an energetic gift. And so my sister and I were flying back and forth from Minnesota, and it was a very difficult one. And then my mother went into hospice and all of this. But prior, she was about 84 when one day she called, we had been talking on the phone about the spiritual stuff. And one day she called me in tears and she said, she goes, I don't know why I'm becoming you.
Your mom said this to you?
Yeah, my mom said that. And I said, well, Mom, what do you mean? She's like, I just, over here, she was raised Pentecostal Baptist. And now she had all these other beliefs. And I don't know that I believe in God. I don't know what all this is, but, I have these feelings. And I said, well, Mother, you opened yourself up to that, because my mother, I found out when I was in my 30s, had the gift of precognition, and she was a prophet. Yeah. And so she knew things that were going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then she kind of closed off that gift. Yeah. So, here she is at 84, and in the Methodist Church, she had decided she wanted to start a class where she was teaching about other religious practices and so forth. And I said, you opened the door to truth. Right. So now all this information was coming to her, and she was trying to sort it out. So then we began having conversations about what happens when you die. Mm-hmm. What does all this mean? Mm-hmm. And what is my relationship with God? When I make my transition, what's going to happen? So I just began to speak from my heart, my higher self, and we would have these discussions. So literally 2 weeks after her memorial service, I was in Arizona with my sister-in-law. And sometimes at that time, I'd been doing kind of spirit circles, or the women would get together and I would give readings and things. So right at the top of the reading, Archangel Azrael and Archangel Michael came in. Big as life. I mean, everyone could feel the energy. They were on the other side of the room, and I was just sitting there. And they said, we have someone here that refuses to do anything until they talk with you. Interesting. And they reached back and they pulled my mother forward. She had just died. And so I guess, whatever, energetically speaking, she couldn't do it on her own, but she's like, I need to talk to my daughter. So she came forward and she said, I have 2 things I have to tell you. She said, 1, I love you, and you basically keep going on your path. But she said, I want you to know you were right all along. Oh. And then they left. And that was like the most awesome. It was the most amazing gift anybody could ever give you from the other side, because what she was telling me was everything that I've been stating, everything that I'm seeing, everything that I'm doing is truth. Wow. And so kind of winding up to today, what I'm doing presently is a refinement of my current work. So when people come in asking for something specific, I give them kind of what it is that they want. But for the most part, with all my different tools, I will connect with God, I will hold their hands, and I will look into their energy field and see what I see. Right. From that perspective, then I know which modality might be better, how to target. I generally work with sound and energy. And you wanted to know, the Akashic Soul Path healings are a combination of all of that. So I have a very profound connection to the divine, and I've always been surrounded by angels, so I work with angels significantly. And so in my work, I open up the Akashic records, and then I look at you, and I look at past, present, future, and I see the energy.
Right. For folks who don't know, what are the Akashic records?
The Akashic records, biblically speaking, are the book of life. Okay. The right hand of God, right? That Metatron, who's the scribe, right? And basically, the Akashic records hold everything that has happened throughout lifetimes. Right? Mm-hmm. So you can tap into the Akashic records and kind of view past, present, future, more future tendencies based upon past and present. And you can look at ancestral ties, genetic ties, and so forth. You can go back into past spiritual essences and kind of see what influences you may have brought into this lifetime that's affecting you now. Mm-hmm. And so that's basically what I do. And then with the angels' assistance and guidance, I energetically clear things and shift the frequencies. Mm-hmm. And do whatever it is needed to do to kind of clear the present, which clears your future. Right. And so that's what I do in the Akashic Soul Path healings. I do need to go, but what I would like to give you just a brief sampling of the sound work. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So what I do is soul songs, and I do soul song concerts. And what I do is I open up to the divine, and the angels sing through me. Uh-huh. And so I don't have a microphone or anything. And what it is, it's a message, it's a story, and energetically speaking, the vibrational frequency of that is served to heal humanity, to heal the world, to heal specific circumstances as they may be in that present moment. And so through my voice, I'm altering your frequency as I'm kind of looking at you. So when I do a group, I do a concert, it's a collective energetic thing that goes on.
Uh-huh.
And so the angels come through to find those key points within the group,
right,
that could be altered and changed. Right? So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Right. So what I'd like you to do is to just close your eyes and just take a sip of water here. And we'll connect. And I'm just going to personally look at your energy here. May I step into your energetic field for a moment?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
You'll find some drowsy energy there, but.
God wants you to understand the true magnificence of who you are. Happiness and peace is meant to be your birthright. May you walk in your true beauty. May you first experience unconditional love for self and to emanate that out and share it with the rest of the world. May you step fully into your power and understand that when you become who you are meant to be, your only gift to the world is to share who you are. You are loved. All right.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're welcome. What was your experience with that?
Well, first I felt tears. And then I felt tingling in my heart chakra. And then I felt specific pieces of energy leaving me. And then I saw my heart chakra being lit up in the color yellow. And the language that you were speaking feels very, very familiar to me.
It's kind of what I call the language of the Elohim. It's a language that is spoken in the God realm. Mm-hmm. And there, when you speak of angelic languages and so forth, there's different names for it, but there are actually different levels of the languages. So I speak the highest level because that that angelic essence is actually part of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
which allows me to hear and to speak and to interpret that sound. So when you think of an angel speaking, one word, angelically speaking, is like 1,000 of our words, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a whole story. It's a couple of words is like a whole monologue of healing because it's vibrational frequency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I'm able then to bring that frequency down and to create the sound essence of it and to send it forward. Okay. So basically that is what I do in my soul song concerts. And what I'm wanting to do is to really travel around the world and to begin doing the soul song concerts. And so I'm looking for venues. Right? That's also part of what I do in the Akashic Soul Path healing.
Okay. That is.
And I would love to do part 2 because I have so much more I would love to
yes, we definitely have to do a part 2.
Yes.
I know that you're on your way to a workshop where other people are going to benefit from your wonderful gift and your wonderful self. But yes, we definitely have to do part 2. I want to tell people that they can find you at phyllisdouglas.com.
Yes.
Is that correct? And you can see your whole list of modalities and services that you offer, and they can get private sessions as well.
Giving you private sessions. I work with people all over the world via Zoom or Skype.
Okay.
And locally in my office, yes.
Yeah, so such a treat.
Douglas is with 2 S's.
That's right. Phyllis Douglas with 2 S's.com. Definitely a treat. Don't miss out. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to talking to you again.